Conti, bella palla per Rebic, Rebic Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, goal!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
What's up guys, glad to be here. We got Madison as well.
Yeah, happy to be back after last week, and Gian.
Yeah, happy to be here again after a win. It's always better.
Bloody is always better. It kind of feels like last week though, where we've got a game to recap at first that wasn't particularly brilliant, but we're all kind of on a high after what we've seen this afternoon against Hellas Verona. So that's good. Always nice when we're more bubbly about it, I suppose. And it also makes it easier to recap the Udinese game, so we might as well dive straight in. I found it really boring. I'll be totally honest. I think it was a crap game. But if you're a Udinese fan, you really enjoyed it probably, because once again, it's another example of them going to a top team, proving that they can play a 3-5-2 and do it very well against a team that creates a lot of high danger scoring chances. And they stopped us from doing that. You know, all they had to do basically was make sure that Leao was isolated, and they did that, and we struggled.
Yeah, I enjoyed it up until like the 93rd minute when they had a
maybe a little later than that even.
95th, yeah.
Maybe even a little later than that. Yeah, it was. I mean, we lost that. Like we drew, but we lost that game. You know, we played shit. It was the last kick of the game was a penalty that we scored to win it. Clear and obvious, the handball. Like absolutely no denying that. I don't know what he was doing, if he thought he was at a concert, but he's just waving his hands around. And
he'd had a really good game, Striga last.
Surprise.
Yeah, leading up to that, he came on around like the 70th or something like that, and I mean, all of Udinese's team was in good spirits because they were up and had been for a while, and we were not threatening at all. I mean, we don't have anywhere near our best 11 available right now, and we saw that again today against Hellas. But we're struggling, you know, with the deficiencies that we have, and it showed. But at least we're talking about 4 points out of the 2 instead of 0. So take what you could get, I guess.
It was a pretty boring game, to be fair.
Go ahead, Gian.
It's all right.
It was
a pretty boring game.
We're off to a great start, boys.
Start 45 minutes late. Now we can't figure out who's going to talk. I'll just go. I thought the Udinese game was one of the most boring games of the season. We definitely should not have gotten a point. I'm happy that we did. And after Wednesday's game or Thursday's game, I don't even know when we played, but I thought that today was going to be a loss, because I was like, there's no way that we're going to come into the game on Sunday and win, especially with Teo and Tonali out.
Yeah, we had less players today than we did then. That's crazy to even think about. I mean, on the called up list of people, we had 2 forwards, and one of them was Roback from the youth team. Like,
right.
Yeah. Like with the Udinese game, we just couldn't create anything. They literally put 9 men behind the ball and left the foul just kind of by himself to try and get something from the game. But I must admit, like, the changes did make an impact on the game. When he brought, I think it was Calabria and Salmakers on, we did look a bit more threatening, and we did start to create, I'd say, in the last 10 minutes. It showed the real character that we've like grown to love this season from this team. And I think a point was deserved from the game. I wouldn't say Udinese deserved to win it, but neither did we. So I think a point was pretty fair. But we could have had 3 if Gigi hadn't made a sloppy error on their goal.
It was one of those where it was fine margins on both ends. Like, we didn't really create enough clear-cut opportunities, in my opinion, to win the game. Let alone win it comfortably, as we would probably expect to do against a team in lower mid-table. But then, on the other hand, obviously, Udinese could have taken the lead if it wasn't for Romagnoli's heroics on the line, when Teo's hospital back pass got cut off, and then Nestorovski headed it, and it was a great goal line clearance. But, you know, I think if he gets that another 9 times out of 10, he puts that in. And then, the goal happened. And again, if you give Gigio that thing another 9 times, then he probably saves it. every time. That was an uncharacteristic error from him, and that put them a goal up. And I really thought that was us done. I thought the moment they went 1-0 up, the timing of the goal, the fact we were creating nothing, the fact we were low on confidence anyway, really, despite the win against Roma, our form in 2021 just hasn't been good enough. And I was pleasantly surprised. I turned my stream off early because I thought that was it. We got into the 5th minute of added time and we were just slinging balls into the box, and it started buffering. I was like, forget this, we've lost this game. And then found out that, we'd scored a penalty and equalised. So I was pleasantly surprised by that because, and I think it's right, there were a couple of players who came out after the game and said, the important thing about a 38-game season is you've got to squeeze points out everywhere, even where you don't deserve them. You've got to find a way to get a point when you look like you're going to get nothing. And I think that was important going into today's game. But, Kessié cool as ice from the spot. Daft mistake for the penalty, obviously, as we've talked about. But again, I suppose it's the law of averages. If you keep putting balls into a dangerous area, eventually you're going to get something that goes your way. And it's a point on the board, I suppose. Udinese will probably beat teams if they play like that again, because I did a tactical analysis on the game. I was really impressed with how they held their shape. It was almost as if their manager, Luca Gotti, said, I don't give a shit what you do with the ball. I want you to make sure that when you haven't got the ball, you stay with a bank of 5 and a bank of 3, and you make things really, really hard for them to play through you because they don't have anything else. We didn't have Ibra to lean on this time. We couldn't go direct because Leao relies so much on his movement as a centre forward. And we didn't have anything. It took a 97-minute penalty for us to get something, but we got it. And I suppose better than nothing. There were quite a few disappointing performances. Oh, go on.
I don't think Udinese should be discredited too much neither, because they took points off Inter this season just a few weeks ago where I think they stopped them from scoring. So they do know how to do the job. They're pretty good defensively, and if an attack with Martinez, Lukaku, who put 3 fast us, can't break Udinese down, then they are doing something right. So I don't think with players missing that we had, I don't think we should be too downbeat. That obviously we should be getting 3 points, but I'd take 4 points from this week. So the 1 came from there, then it is what it is.
There's nothing wrong with crediting your opponent, when they play a good game. I thought they executed their game plan nearly perfectly. You could see it even from I would advise anybody who's into this kind of thing, if you go on the Serie A website and you click on the result after the game, you can download what's called a match report. It tells you everything. It shows you the heat map of the players, shows you where our attacks went down, like which flank, where the shots were taken from. We had 3 shots on target from inside 8 yards. So you think, again, law of averages, if we have 3 shots on target from within 8 yards in a normal game, we're going to score 3 of them or 2 of them. As it turned out, we didn't score any of them. Leao had that overhead kick that was weak, and then there was a header. It's interesting to look at that kind of thing because it was so obvious that they were trying to drive us over onto the right side, knowing we had nothing. And then I think, as Jan said, Pioli reacted well. The 2 substitutes that he made to bring fresh legs onto the right side, he realised that they were trying to make us play down there, so he increased the threat on the right side, and it did work. We did look better for it. I thought Mete actually came on and had a good game as well, and that probably gave him a lot of confidence going into today, which we'll talk about. But there was some bad performances in there. Leao looked awful, like he was not in the game. He didn't affect it one bit. I kind of feel sorry for him because when he's playing against 3 centre-backs, he ain't going to pin 2 of them down like Zlatan does. He's relying on a mistake from 1 of 3 players, maybe 2 of 3 players, and it just never came. So he was feeding off scraps a little bit. Castillejo was, ineffective. Teo had a lacklustre game. He got beaten a couple of times, and he gave the ball away for what should have been their opening goal. I was expecting big things from Kalulu, and he was kind of quiet, and he looked shaky defensively. I was surprised by that.
Very average.
Yeah, the thing that was the problem is that if you look at the starting 11, I don't think anybody was above a 6 aside from maybe Kessié. And Kessié now has had this thing where he's had to carry the team for multiple performances throughout this calendar year alone. And
is he on double-digit goals right now, or is he's on 8 or 9 goals, right?
He's on 9, yeah.
9, yeah.
which is his best goal scoring season in Serie A, which is great. I mean, 8 of them are penalties, and the other ones.
Right. I mean, that's because we have 16 penalties this season.
Well, we've got a guaranteed penalty taker. That's the good thing, Like,
you've got to score your penalties. Like Ibra's missed enough. I know people say, "Oh well, it's just a penalty," but you've still got to put it in the net. It's not as simple as you're not shooting in the open net, are you?
Well, for example, Huddersfield have had 3 awarded this season, and we've missed all 3 of them, and they would have won us 9
That's
points.
not saying much.
No, it's not. It's not, because we still got the score even when we're 2 yards out. But there you go. It can win you valuable points. And if we look back and we've won the league, or we've qualified for the top 4, or we finished second by a point, you can look back and say that was the point that did it. Obviously there'll be other points that are important, but if you want to pinpoint stuff, last season we would have lost that game 2-0. Or maybe the season before we'd have lost that game 2-0, because we didn't have the resolve to keep going, keep plugging away. And we would have been nailed on the counter because we had absolutely no structure. But I think we did okay to get a point from that. But yeah, that was it. A load of average performances, pretty poor. I mean, Donnarumma's been really, really good this season, in my opinion. He's developing in all aspects, and I didn't think that was possible when he was already so good. But then to make a mistake like that, it's just like, wow, when even your most dependable players can make potentially match costing errors, then you just know that you've got to always be on your game.
Yeah, anything could happen.
Yeah.
But it's weird though, because, like you said, it is a rare error from Donnarumma, and he absolutely is our best player. But today against Hellas, that was only our 4th clean sheet of the season. And, for being as good as we have been all season, you'd almost expect we'd have a few more.
He's at 9th today.
I thought it was 4.
Far away, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe that's what it was.
I think it was
I swear the commentator said it, and that's why I was like, oh shit.
Well, the commentators got an awful lot wrong. They were absolutely hounding Ceccherini for missing what they said was another clear header, and it wasn't even him. The commentators got a lot wrong today. I realised we had the same commentator when you said something, but yeah, don't know what that. But 9 clean sheets, it's not too bad, but I think we should have more. I do think we should have more. There's been games where we've let in a sloppy late goal. The Sampdoria one, Bologna away, which has made things.
Yeah, but I feel like given the past 4 or 5 weeks, holding a clean sheet is gonna boost the team morale a lot.
Well, we should probably just come on to the game that we've seen today now as a nice little segue. Basically, in the build-up to the game, it became apparent as of this morning that we weren't going to have Ibra, Mandzukic, Rebic, who's got a hip problem, Çalhanoğlu, Benacer, who am I missing?
Teo.
Yeah, Teo and Tonali weren't fit enough to start. Neither was Hauger.
What are we paying Mandzukic for?
Not that that's a big thing, but he's injured.
So it made it 9 injuries. And
it's 4 away clean sheets. You were right. Sorry.
Yeah. There's a thing as well about how 6 of our starters, if you add it up, which is I think Benacer, Ibrahimovic, Çalhanoğlu, Kia, Romagnoli, and one other. I think if you add up how many those, 6 those starters,
I think it is,
have missed 60 games this season, and that's a lot. Obviously combined, missed 60 games combined. That is a lot. When you take the core out of a team for that many games, it has an effect. And I predicted on last week's podcast that we'd draw today. I thought that was an optimistic prediction, purely based on the fact I've seen how Hellas play against teams that are above them. They seem to have a game plan. Like in the last few rounds, they've turned over Napoli away, Atalanta away. They beat Lazio and they drew with Juve, and they gave into a really good game. So I thought with the injuries that we had and the injuries we picked up, I thought we were dead certain to drop points in this game. But it was actually probably our most comfortable win of the season, dare I say it, aside from like Crotone and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'd say it was one of our
2-2 draw as well
of the season.
Yeah, I think last podcast I predicted we'd walk away from these 2 fixtures with 4 points, except I said beat Udinese and draw against Hellas. So I mean, I'll take it, but
I think that
Hellas is a good team.
I think that we say it's one of our better performances because of what we were expecting.
Yeah, I think given the circumstances, in relative terms, it was a good performance. I didn't expect us, because we struggle inherently anyway against and I know Jan's going to rightly pull me up on my agenda here for 3-man defences, but we do tend to struggle against those teams, as Udinese proved. And I really thought that with further injury problems to add on top of that, the fact that we're not coming into it with loads and loads of confidence, the fact that Hellas Verona have taken 10 points from the last 4 games at home and the draw was against Juve, I was like, if we get a draw from this, I'm actually going to celebrate it. And yeah, I think that just managed expectations a bit. I didn't expect us to create anything, but we created more than enough to win the game. But what was most impressive for me was how we managed it, how we managed the lead. They didn't have an actual serious shot on goal until the 75th minute, something like that. And yes, there were a couple of moments that were a bit dodgy. Calabria deflected that shot wide. Krunic headed one off the line. But it was pretty comfortable overall. And it's against a team that are no mugs, you know what I mean? Like that, I think they'll finish in the top 8. So
I think they're the best of the rest, as they say, by far.
Them and Sassuolo are kind of interesting. Yeah.
I just think the Krunic goal really set the mood for the team, and I think when he scored that, everyone was just like, "All right, we can win this game," because they started out real slow, and the first maybe 10 minutes of the game, I was like, "This will be a long 90 minutes," And then as soon as he scored, the team completely turned around.
Well, it's rare that we get a free kick goal, especially one like that. That was incredible. And it's funny, you look at Çalhanoğlu, who we signed to be this free kick specialist. He's had, I don't even know how many, 2, 3 his whole time. And here comes Krunic, this guy that we signed to basically occupy a spot on the roster. He's putting in the goal of the season. Yeah, that was wild.
I think every man just did the job perfectly today. I think Tomori and Romagnoli, I think they are the standout duo for the centre-back role.
I agree.
That's no disrespect to Kian. I know we've slated Romagnoli a bit, and I'm not saying he's perfect. I still think the inconsistencies are there, but I just think that them two should be the centre-back pairing going forward. I just think they complement each other quite well. Calabria was brilliant today again, I thought, and I've said it before, him and Salmaker on the right, they just work so well together. We look so much more defensively better, attacking better down that right side when them two were playing together. And Mete, who's come under a lot of stick since he signed, and I've tried actually backing him up because he's needed a bit of time to settle, get used to his teammates, get used to the way we're playing. He's come in today, and I thought he was brilliant in midfield. I thought he did the job perfect. He had some nice bits of skill. His passing was pretty good. I thought he was a joy to watch, to be honest.
I know that it's cliche, but Mete genuinely didn't put a foot wrong. He did absolutely everything to a T, and I actually think that he's actually a bit like Tonali in a way that we were expecting him to come in and occupy a more defensive role, but he actually seems to thrive when he gets to drive play forward. He did that nice little pirouette spin move thing, and then his shot on the edge of the box let him down a bit. But then I was thinking, this is a guy who people assume is just absolute dog shit, but he's got technical ability. He can do something. And my argument has always been, if you're going to give time and patience to Tonali, you at least owe a fraction of that to Mete as well. Even if Mete is not a 10-year option like Tonali might be, you've got to give him at least a bit of time to adjust.
Exactly. He was brought in as a 4th choice midfielder, and because of our injury crisis, he's had to be a starter quite a bit, or being thrown in after 20 minutes, after 45 minutes. And it's a lot to take in, especially when you're coming from a totally different system, a relegation battle side to one that's title challenging. It's going to take you some time to accustom and get to grips with what we're actually trying to achieve and stuff like that. So I actually think he's doing pretty well, and I'd be tempted to say that he should get the nod on Thursday.
I don't know if we're going to have much of a choice. I mean, it sounds like Tonali's isn't a muscle problem. It's an actual, he took a knock. So he needs a bit of time just to heal up. He's heavily bruised or whatever. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he'll get a bit of a rest. It's an interesting one. We got a question about the selection for United, so I'll hang fire on that until we come on to it. But to be honest, it was a game where a lot of the players who've been under fire in recent weeks stepped up. Krunic, like Mete, I can't really think of an awful lot that he's done wrong in the last in the last couple of weeks. He put in a good performance in Europe away at Belgrade in particular, where I thought, actually, he looks like he can play that number 10 role if we needed him to do it. And we needed him to do it today. And I thought he did a damn good job. Like, the way we played was actually kind of like a 4-3-3, I suppose, because he was playing a bit deeper than a number 10 was, and found it interesting to see Castillejo playing up top a fair bit, and Leao drifting into wider areas. I think that shows that the 4-2-3-1 is very much only a starting formation for us, and if the game dictates for us to adapt and change things up a bit, then Pioli does that. He tells the front four to like interchange and stuff, and I think that kept Hellas very much pinned back. But yeah, Krunic was pretty excellent, to be honest. He won the free kick that he then scored after a nice little 1-2 where he knocked the ball beyond the defender and got chopped down, and then stepped up and banged it into the top corner. There's an amazing angle of that from behind the goal that shows the curve on it and it going right into the top corner. It's probably the best goal he'll score in his career, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I was going to compare it to the second goal that Spezia scored, where that player just hit it just right.
Yeah,
it was like the goal of his.
Yeah,
similar.
That one was a bit better still.
It was better, but for Krunic, like, you don't expect him to score
definitely.
upper 90 far side of a free kick, you know?
I was getting massive deja vu of, remember when we played Atalanta at home last season and we had a bit of an injury crisis then? And
I was going to say, I'd rather forget.
Çalhanoğlu scored a free kick where he hit it from an unlikely angle into the top corner. And we were like, shit. And then we ended up drawing 1-1. But it was like that. Like, we're backs against the wall. We've got loads of injuries to deal with. And then out of nowhere, a free kick, top corner, which we're not expecting. I think it's just a reminder as well. Now, Krunic may never score another free kick for us again. In fact, I'd say that's pretty likely. But it is a reminder of the one-off quality that we have. Like, we still have players that can influence the outcome of games when you're just not expecting it at all. So I give props to Krunic. I thought he was potentially the man of the match today. Mete was superb, but got to give a mention to Diogo Dalot as well, because we've absolutely rinsed him on here.
We have.
And rightly so, because he's been crap, to be honest. But
I think we've all agreed that when he's played left back, he's been significantly better than when he has it right back. And he showed today that his capabilities at left back are a lot better.
Well, that's what he was originally signed for, right? Was to be Teo's backup. It just happened that we needed him on the right a lot more.
Probably a bit. I think we signed him knowing that he could play both, because he has played both and done it well. And there's this thing about it. It seems to now be a thing to play with inverted fullbacks, like Pep's doing it with City, with like João Cancelo and stuff.
How'd that work out today, though?
Yeah, no, it didn't. And Dalot's obviously nowhere near that level. But it is an interesting thing that, you've got a fullback. They should be able to defend fairly well, regardless of the side. It doesn't matter so much. But the idea that instead of, getting shown outside and crossing with their strong foot, they actually get to cut inside and cause damage that way. And it was that little inside run that Teo does quite a lot, as we've seen, that basically opened Hellas up for the second goal. And he took it really, really well. It was a nice bit of work from Leao. I'll give him credit. I thought Leao had a better game today because he occupied the defence a lot better than he did against a three-man defence that Udinese had. But he occupied his man, and then Dalot, nice little drop of the shoulder to lose his man, and a perfect first-time finish. And I think, I hope that's a confidence booster for him. I hope that now he's going to become a really useful asset between now and the end of the season. It's like we've been saying with Brahim, with Dalot. At the moment, there's no motivation to go to the parent clubs and say, look, we want to keep him beyond the summer. I hope that they give us a reason to get on the phone to United and to get onto the phone to Real Madrid and say, we want to keep these guys, because it'll mean they've done well, it'll mean they've won us points, and it'll mean that we're a better team because of it. So I hope that's the start of things for Dalot. I don't think he can play on Thursday night.
Yeah, he can. He got cleared.
He can.
Did he? Right. Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
That's good news. Whether he does or not is another thing, because I presume that Teo and Calabria will probably start if those two are fit. But yeah, and then as Jan said, I thought Romagnoli and Tomori looked fantastic today. They're the two most mobile centre-backs we have. And, well, they didn't have loads to do, but at the same time, there's something about Romagnoli. He seems to look more confident with Tomori next to him because I think he knows that it's not all on him to be the recovery man, to be the man who's always there for the last minute interceptions for the.
He does the same with Gabbia. He looks a lot more confident with Gabbia next to him, I thought, at times. And I think it just allows him to be a bit more of the leader of the back. But like you said, he doesn't have to take accountability. He knows that if he has missed it, Tomori's behind him to sweep up with his pace. Whereas if he misses it and Kier's there, as fast as Kier may be, he's still not as quick as Tomori, and it isn't as good as them two.
It's interesting because Gabby has come back and we've very rarely mentioned his name, but we should, because when he has been called upon back end of last season, early this season, he's been pretty damn good, you know, and he's a good fourth option to have, in my opinion. And then that makes Kalulu at the moment the fifth option. There's nothing really concrete. I mean, there's been a few reports that have come out saying that we are becoming increasingly tempted to use the option to buy that we have for Tomori. I know we're not in charge of Milan's finances, thankfully, but I just think it's a no-brainer at this point, considering what we're going to invest in, arguably a less proven player in Simakan. And to see, it's very rare that a player comes and has such an instant impact. You know, if you look at Amete and Mandzukic, the two other January signings, they're still waiting to make their stamp. Mate's getting there, obviously. Mandzukic is injured. But for Tomori...
Has Mandzukic played 90 minutes, like, total?
No. For Tomori to be thrown in for his debut against Inter and to pretty much pocket Lukaku, and it was Alexis Sanchez, but still, that you know, set the tone for him, and he's been pretty damn good since. And that makes me think, what is he going to grow into? You know, if he's starting at a good level, what's he going to become between now and the end of the season?
I don't see a scenario where we don't buy him. I just don't think the management that naive, that stupid not to buy him just for the sake of, let's say, 5 million. That's what they're trying to haggle it down to. I don't think they'd be willing to lose a potential centre back to partner with Romagnoli for minimum the next 5 years. I just don't see a scenario in which that happens.
Yeah, I'm not ready to give Romagnoli a pass yet because of one good performance, but I do think
I'm not.
Tomori's the right partner for him at this moment, and it makes sense to redeem that option and push them together the best we can. Like, if we're not looking for a Romagnoli replacement, then let's keep him with the guy who he's done the best with, and as of right now, that's Tomori. So we got to take that option.
Yeah, to be fair, it's only been one game.
It has been.
That's what I'm saying. It's one game.
Like they need to play more together to determine if, like, it could just be this game, but
that'll they'll probably play on Thursday, right? Together.
I think
I would hope so.
Defensive performance on this Thursday, next Thursday, if Tomori and Romagnoli are there, or it's Tomori and Kier, as long as Tomori plays, I think if that'll be what gets us through, will be the defensive performance, because Man United have got a good attack, and if they take us through to the next round, or Tomori does something brilliant, I think that will be then inclined to think, we'll buy him.
I'm curious when the first penalty is going to be, whether it's us or them. I mean, shit, they're on like 10 this season. We're on 16. Like,
yeah,
there's going to be one
versus your president. That's going to be an interesting one. Tomori absolutely has to play on Thursday night. I know we've kind of migrated here into a preview of Thursday night, but he has to play because Man United's strength is in their attack, not only their attack, but their counter-attack. They play similar to us in a way, you know, where they sort of sit and try and contain. They've got a few players that are of a similar nature to us as well, in a way, like, I suppose you can say Maguire and Romagnoli are compatible in the sense that they're both club captains and they're under an awful lot of they're both under an awful lot of pressure to perform. They've got a number 10 that everything goes through, obviously Çalhanoğlu v Bruno Fernandes. There's plenty of comparables between the two teams, but their strength is definitely in the speed of their counter-attack. You look at Martial, Rashford, Dan James, although Rashford did come off injured today, so be worth keeping an eye on what happens there. Mason Greenwood, though, you know, the fullbacks even. I mean, Luke Shaw got a goal today against City. He took it really well. It's just a reminder of what he can do when he cuts in field. And obviously, Wan-Bissaka. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting tie, a really interesting tie. But bottom line, yeah, Tomori absolutely needs to play, and perhaps that's why he was rested for that midweek game, because he Pioli knew that we had these two coming up that are very important, and we need the speed and the presence that Tomori brings. Who he plays alongside is another thing. I mean, I think personally there might be a temptation to put him alongside Kier if he's fully rested, because of the way that he can bully and he can dominate certain forwards, especially.
Yeah, but do you bench your captain for arguably the biggest game that we've played in Europe in the last 6 or 7 years?
I don't think that matters, considering we were calling for him to be benched against Roma, which is a top 4 contender in what was an important game. I don't think.
Yeah,
playing Roma in the league
matters.
is different than playing Manchester United in a European matchup.
I don't in the sense that Roma, we had to get something out, and if we'd lost that, it could have been a catastrophe. Really,
we get 2 shots.
That game.
We get 2 shots at United. Remember, obviously it's over 2 legs, so I wouldn't be surprised if you fielded 2 separate pairings, unless we kept a clean sheet at Old Trafford on Thursday night, which I think is highly unlikely.
Well,
I say that one more time.
Getting benched for this first leg, not on Thursday, not after a good performance today and last time out, right? Like, this is the second game in a row where he hasn't played terrible.
Do you mean Romagnoli?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a thing of so I wrote an article this morning, I can't remember which paper it was, but it basically the idea that Pioli has now 3 luxury options with Romagnoli, Kier and Tomori available, and he'll rotate the pairings because he doesn't want any of his centre-backs starting 3 games in 8 days. Romagnoli started the last 2 games. Do you think this might be his time to sit out and have a rest? Hang on, let me ask the question now, because otherwise I'm going to forget. There we go. Milan Club Dublin. Opinions on who should start against United, given the injuries we have and Napoli soon after. We don't really have an awful lot of choice.
That's another big thing to look at too, is Napoli in the league, which is definitely a more important game, I'd say. And another thing to go back to Romagnoli is he falters in big games. This is a big game against a big team. We've seen how he reacted against Lukaku with pace. Obviously not the same amount, but Cavani's a pretty versatile player in his own right, and he could play pretty similar and beat Romagnoli.
I don't know if he has any pace, but he's very good.
What I'm saying. He's like not going to be sprinting full speed like Lukaku, but he could pull off all the same stuff, if not more. He's a better player in my opinion, at least in his prime he was. But I don't know. I maybe it's not. I'm torn. I'm going back and forth here.
I don't know. Do we start Romagnoli? We've all been saying that he goes missing in big games, so this is his chance now to prove that he doesn't go missing in big games. I think it could actually.
How many chances do you give?
If he goes missing in big games, we have 3 back-to-back big games.
I agree, but after
he's got to start in one of them.
After arguably 2 good performances, to then drop him in the next game, when the critics have been saying, "Oh, he falters in big games," while he's riding on his confidence. You play him in that game and let him prove that he can play in the big games. The Man United away is already kind of like a scheduled loss. You expect to lose that, and as long as you can get a goal from it. So play him in that. If he does well, then it's amazing. We might actually get something from the game. If not, we've still got to come back to Milan, and that's when we need the clean sheet at home, because you don't want to concede the away goal.
It's like the general consensus that we had was that Inter was the last chance for Romagnoli. And we all agreed pre-Inter podcast that he needed to show in that particular game that he'd finally learned his lesson in how to deal with Lukaku and Lautaro or one of the other, and he didn't, and he got dropped for the Roma game, which was a massive game. It was a huge statement, big confidence dent for him. I mean, Pioli pretty much came out afterwards and said that he didn't agree with it, which is understandable. Not only that, but it's a big confidence boost for Tomori, who's just arrived. He got put into the starting 11 for a massive game. We only conceded once against a free-scoring team at home, and we won the game, and Tomori put in a great performance. So he must be thinking, right, that's it, I've got this starting spot nailed down now. He's now back out of the team for Wednesday night, apparently because of fatigue, but we don't know. I mean, I think that's probably the case. When you start a quick succession of games, that can happen. And then there was all the confusion going into this game against Verona as to who would start. And that made me think, actually, has Pioli handled this situation pretty badly? Because he's making it very clear he has no idea who his first choice pairing is. And he's just going to keep running through them until he finds a formula that hits. I think Thursday night, the selection for that will be a big indicator of what he thinks is the best choice pairing. Unless he goes with like Gabby or Kalulu or something, and it's clear that he's just rotating because he's focusing on the Scudetto still.
I'd be tempted to say, just to keep the same team that played today, let him ride on the confidence of a good result, rest Teo, rest Rebic, rest Tonali, who they're the three that are most likely going to come back and walk into the 11 as such on Thursday. Just rest them. Try get a goal at Old Trafford if we can. If not, we'll do the job at home and rest them for the league game against Napoli, because there's not better than trying to ride a team on confidence. Play them.
Yeah,
I think they're the only changes that I'd make is Teo for Delort, Tonali for Mate, and then Rebic up top and Rafa on the left. They're the only changes that I'd really make. But again, I'd be tempted just to keep the team the same.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. The bigger game is Napoli. Like you said, we get a second shot at United, and this first leg's away. So even if we just scrape off a bullshit 1-1, you know, like that gives us the edge going into the home leg where we could then field a stronger team knowing how we were going to perform against Napoli. So, you know, if we field the exact same lineup that we did today, I think that's not a bad call either. Restart.
So we'll see which players we get back from injury for that trip to Old Trafford. I think potentially if Rebic and Tonali and Teo are all fit and they're all close to 100%, I think they start. I think that we might try and do this in the first leg. I know there's the whole mentality of getting a favourable result away and then taking care of business at home. But you look at the Red Star game, we scored twice, got those 2 away goals, and it felt like we were sort of 1 foot in the next round, even coming back. Also, you've got to factor in, our away form is a lot better than our home form. We've now got 34 points away from home in the league, which is the best in the division quite comfortably. Whereas our home form is 7th in the league. We're dropping points. We dropped a lot more points at home than we have done away from home. So I think we might like the idea of going away and getting an away goal and the confidence that brings. If we could get 2, then that would just be absolute dreamland. And then we'll see what kind of a situation we're in for next week. Because let's say we go away and lose 3-0. Let's say we get hammered. Like Real Sociedad lost their first leg 4-0 to Man United. To the extent where, you know, then you're thinking the second leg is like useless. We're probably not going to do it without conceding an away goal, and therefore you have to score 5, whatever. Then all of a sudden the focus might be on the Napoli game. And you've got a situation where you've got to throw players out there who have started the game at Old Trafford and they've got minimal rest and they're asked to get a result in a big game against a team that's challenging for the top 4. Basically, I'm glad that I'm not Pioli and I have to manage the rotation of the players. But I think if he gets, you know, 3 or 4 players back for that game at Old Trafford, then he plays them. Probably safe in the knowledge as well that he's going to get another 3 or 4 back for the return leg. You know, there's rumours that Ibra, Çalhanoğlu, Mandzukic are going to be fit for that second leg. Maybe not the Napoli game, but the second leg against United. And that's like having 3 new pieces to throw out there. So, yeah, prediction time, I guess. I think United are going to take a lot of confidence from that win over City today. Mm-hmm. And they were impressive in that, to be honest. They defended so well. I know it's different, league versus Europa League. I know that they're also still juggling various commitments. They've got a tough game between the 2 legs. But I think we'll lose. It's just a question of whether we get an away goal. And I think we will. So I'll say we'll lose 2-1.
I hope we get an away goal, but then I think we're going to get kind of beat up pretty good here. It might be like a 3-0.
I think it's hard predicting now because you never know if we're going to have like 6 injuries on the night before the game and everything changes. Or Man United might. I don't know. I want to be confident and I want to say that we actually get a good result, i.e. like a win. But I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think we'll hit them pretty early, get a goal, the away goal, sit back comfortably and just let them attack and probably concede. So yeah, I think it's going to be 1-1.
I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw as well. I think the team found their confidence again today, and it's going to carry over to Thursday, and hopefully we put it away on the home leg.
It depends how Ollie looks at it and all with his team selection, because they've got West Ham on Sunday, which is a big game, like top 4 wise, because it's a lot closer there in England, I'd say, for them, consider for what it is for us. So
where is West Ham?
He might 4th, I think, or 5th.
They're in 7th.
I think they're 7th.
Yeah,
because
Everton's down now.
Yeah, but they have 2 games in hand, and they're 2 points off of 4th. So anything could happen. It's close.
So if Ollie could quite easily just not care that much about the Europa League himself and play a week. I think it's all just going to depend on the day of the game, how both teams line up.
He's one of them where
I had one to predict.
I never normally enjoy doing the predicted 11s articles for the website because they change so often. But this is going to be interesting, like to see how we approach it and how they approach it. Whether it's going to be like a game with chicken in the media with, reports of us playing a strong side, and then that makes them play a strong side, and vice versa.
I think because teams they tend to not care about Europa League when they're playing a smaller side. But I think with this one, where it's like this is a marquee fixture, no matter what competition it's in, regardless of outside competitions that are undoubtedly more important, our Scudetto race, their title race as well. I think they're still going to try and go out there and put on a show and look good, just because of the historical impact of this fixture has always had. I think they're going to field a strong 11.
I'd like to think so, because there'd be nothing worse than Man United fielding a strong 11 and we go into it with a weak one and get absolutely battered. It'd do no good for our confidence. So I agree. I think both sides should field a strong team.
Yeah, be a lot of eyes glued to this game. Like, it is a showpiece fixture. Like I say, even though it's Europa League, it's very much a tie with Champions League pedigree. So I just hope it's the spectacle that it should be. But that being said, if it were a 1-1, I'd be absolutely buzzing. I'd actually probably back us from there. Anyway, Napoli then on Sunday night. Napoli are playing at the moment as we speak against Bologna at home, and they haven't got another game for a week because they got knocked out by Granada. Granada in the Europa League. So that was a bit of a shock for them. They're, I know that it's obviously that it'll depend on what happens with their result tonight, but I think they'll be 6th regardless of what happens tonight. So yeah, now I'm never confident against Napoli ever. It just feels like they're one of those teams that have had our number in recent years. Now, obviously, we went there earlier in the season and won 3-1. And that was, for me, potentially our best away performance of the season because they were in red-hot form going into it too. That was the Ibra show. He scored a classic brace. And I thought, we were fantastic that night. Napoli have been really up and down this season. I think a few people, given the investment that they made to bring in players like Osimhen, probably a few people thought that they'd be firmly in the top 4 this season, or certainly more on the cusp than they are at the moment. But like I say, I'm never confident. I'm just never confident. I thought if it's
they've had a February a lot like ours, where they've dropped a lot of games that were just unexpected losses for them. At least in the last 7 fixtures or so, I think they've lost 4, something like that. They haven't done too well. I mean, they bounced back recently, right? Like they beat Benevento, and I think they drew last time out against whomever they played. I can't remember, but before that, they lost 3 or 4 straight.
It was so they had a 6-0 win against Fiorentina in January, and then since then they actually lost 3-1 at Hellas Verona. They beat Parma, lost at Genoa, then they beat Juve, which I remember being a big result for us at the time. Then they lost 4-2 away at Atalanta, beat Benevento, and then drew with Sassuolo, and that was when they went 3-2 up in the dying seconds and couldn't hang on. So they're really like us. They're very stop-start. They can't seem to string 2 good performances together. If they were to win tonight against Bologna, then that might make me feel a little bit more confident, I suppose.
Right.
But interestingly,
if they lose tonight, I think Gattuso could be... I mean, there's already talking going out the door. I don't think they'd get rid of him that But if they do lose tonight, and say, for example, I like win tomorrow, then that would make them 8 points off the top 4. I just don't think De Laurentiis will keep Gattuso if that happens. It's all ifs and buts, but there's a small chance that they could be going into that game with a new manager or managerless. So it'd be interesting to see.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sarri returned.
I would. I think he burnt his bridge there when he went to Juve. But, you can't rule anything out, I suppose, in football. One thing as well that I didn't even realise, and I don't know if this is just a Wikipedia thing, but it's also got their rescheduled round 3 game, the COVID chaos game, against Juve 3 days after our game against them. So they play us on the 14th and Juve away on the 17th. Now that Juve game is arguably more important because even though Juve keep picking up wins, they are still closer to dropping out the top 4 than what we are. So they might prioritise that. Who knows? But they've got a tough.
They're going to push for both. They're going to push for both because they need all 6 points. 3 points from either of us isn't going to do it. They have to go all out. So I don't think that's
Gattuso might do us a favour. It might do the club a favour.
God bless that man.
Honestly, if there's a manager that's going to throw a game for his fucking boyhood club, it's him. So I can see
him.
Yeah, for sure.
People might have something to say about that. But that was funny.
His comments after before when we played him, I was like, is he gonna throw the game?
He wasn't like that though. He got asked about the potential of coaching Inter in the future, and he was like, no, like Ancelotti, I'm just too linked to this club, and I absolutely loved that. I'm never, like I said, never confident going into games against Napoli. Feels like they're a bit of a bogey side for us. I just hope that we can summon that same energy that we had in that first game of the season, where we managed.
Are we gonna have is there any chance of Zlatan returning for the second leg of United?
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Apparently.
But is he going to play?
I don't know.
I don't think he will. Why?
He will.
Why? Just so he can get injured again? No.
Do you know who we're
rest
talking
that he
about?
Needs. He's like
this
80
is the guy
years
who's
old.
coming back from his 5th injury of the season and wants to get called up for a fucking random friendly for Sweden versus Georgia. He's going to play against
prove
United
that he can
if he
come back for the national
I think.
Well, there you go.
He wants to be on the bench against Napoli. To be honest.
That's what I was getting at. If he's going to be back for the second leg United, are we going to shoehorn him in for Napoli?
I think he'll be on the bench and then just throw him on if we need something. I'd like to think he'll be back for that.
Yeah,
I think so too.
We're at that point now where no matter how carefully we seem to handle Ibrahimovic, it doesn't work.
So every 60 minutes he goes down.
Remember the thing about how we gave him a week or 2 extra to recover that first time round, and then he got injured again before Sassuolo away. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, so us giving him more time than he needs doesn't work. So what's wrong with rushing him back now? He isn't going to do any long-term damage to his muscles because there's no long-term with him. He sees out the end of the season, and that's probably it. I'm more inclined now to think that this will be his last season with us, and Euro 2020 will be his swan song.
Last dance.
Yeah, potentially. Because I just think his body isn't holding up this second half of the season. And he can leave with no regrets if he gets us back into the top 4, but also being away from his family. He keeps mentioning how big a deal that is. And I don't think we'll give him 7 million again if he stays. So it might be a matter of principle.
I genuinely believe he gave 150% the first half of the season, and because of that, now he's got 25% left in him for the remaining stretch, and it is what it is. And if he hadn't have given us all that he had that first half, we wouldn't be where we are. So I'm thankful for it, but I just think realistically, there's no chance he comes back fully fit and is able to perform at that high level for the rest of the season without hurting himself again. So I expect fit for our performances.
He proves us wrong. What an incredible story it will be. If he comes back and nets 10 goals in the last 10 games to win us the league, then wow, we'll hold our hands up.
There's nothing I want more than for him to hear this, A, because then he's listening, and B, because then he'll prove us wrong, and that's the greatest thing that could happen.
I do think it's a bit reckless for him going back to potentially being called up for the Sweden.
I don't understand why he's doing it.
I think one thing's going to this SempreMilan festival. Look, he's injured. There's nothing it wouldn't have made a difference if he hadn't gone to the festival. But to be coming back from an injury, to be playing games against Kosovo and Georgia, when we're trying to fight for the title, fight for top four, I just think it's ridiculous. Like, why put yourself through the travelling, the game time, when you could have 2 weeks rest and then literally be back for the last 10 games of the season? Because if he gets injured on international duty, I think there'll be riots.
There might be. I wonder how much of it is the fact that he will get to be with his family while he's back home in Sweden. I don't know. I don't know if that's allowed. That was just speculation. He might have to stay in a bubble with the rest of the team and stuff like that while there's internationals on. But I wonder how much of it is.
You think Zlatan's going to listen to that? No.
Yeah. He basically stole a motorcycle to get to this music festival. He's going to go see his family.
Did you see
or they'll be in the
Sweden national team? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think as well.
Had he gotten called up in the first half of the season when he was, a brace every single game and wasn't missing anything, I would have been like, yeah, for sure. You still got it, man. Like, do your thing. It's dope. But now it's like, you got to think about the bigger picture. And I get, maybe he realizes that this is his last season at the top flight. The Europa League's a swan song. Getting us back in Champions League's a swan song. Getting the 2020 Euros is his swan song. Maybe that's what he's going to end it on. That's why he's taking this call, just so he could get the final Euro call.
But do you think he's going to get on the Euro team?
Yes.
If he wants to be, he will.
Okay.
Who's going to stop him?
Still be Sweden.
Yeah, right. He'll play. Yeah.
That's my worry/wonder is if this is inadvertently a sign that he's heading for retirement. It seems a bit out of the blue that he's coming back for 2 friendlies and with the Euros around the corner and stuff. Big major tournament because, I don't know. I mean, we ought to say at this point as well, they're unconfirmed reports. Like, he hasn't actually been called up yet, but things seem
But we heard reports of it the previous call-up, and it didn't happen, but we knew there were talks of it then. So, I mean, don't be surprised. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, Napoli. I guess Osimhen will be back for this because he's back in training. He had a concussion. And then we know the threat that they've got elsewhere. Obviously, Insigne, who always seems to have a great game against us. So does Hervin Lozano. Dries Mertens too. Full of threat. Bakayoko will have a point to prove against his old team. If Ibra isn't back, then Koulibaly and Manolas will probably fancy themselves to pocket Leao. I think this is going to be a difficult game. I think this is going to be a tough game against a team that thrives on playing against the top teams. Obviously, they battered Roma the game after Diego Maradona's death 4-0 in what was a huge game at the time.
Well, that was a little different. They had the motivation of Maradona behind them,
Yeah, I suppose. But they beat Juve at home. They put 6 past Fiorentina. So they know, they know how to win games against teams around them. But I think we edge it. I think Napoli only know one way in a sense, and that is to try and play open and to try and get the ball forward. And our strength being the counter-attack. I think that should potentially play into our hands. So I'm going to say 2-1 win.
What is our previous results against Gattuso? I mean, I know we obviously did the 3-1.
I think we swept them last year.
I don't remember if we won both games, but I don't think we lost.
We drew 1-1 at home. That was in Pioli's. He hadn't been here that long. That was a nightmare schedule, and Bonaventura equalised with that shot that went through.
So we won 3-1, then drew 2-2.
Yeah, the 3-1 win was this season. We drew 2-2 away back end of last season, and that was a good game actually. That was a good game. We drew both games last season. Before that, we drew 0-0 at home against them and lost 3-2 away. There's been some good games. In fact, we've only beaten them once since 2014, and that was this season.
Sure, but none of that really accounts. I mean, both teams have different players, different formations, different managers, different motivations, different objectives. It's none of the past matters. Earlier this season,
I think every objective for every manager is to win.
Yes, but no. I mean,
it is. But if you're a relegated side, like
Yeah,
You've got to
top
be
team. You know, you've got to be realistic about when you're managing your games. Of course, every manager wants to win, but I think there's some realism involved in it, and they just manage their expectations a bit better. Yeah. I think we beat Napoli comfortably. I'd say 2-0.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I think we're going to ride the wave of confidence. I think if whatever happens tomorrow in the Inter-Atalanta game is going to be a big boost for us. If Inter win, we know that if we beat Napoli, we go further away from not qualifying for the Champions League. If Atalanta win, we know we're that step closer to Inter. So I just think we ride the confidence. If we get a good result in Manchester, then I think, again, we just keep riding the wave. And I think we win 2-0.
Nice.
I think 2-1 win.
Yeah, we're the same then. Fingers crossed it is a dub, because that would be massive. Again, it's like the Roma game was huge because they were kind of gaining ground on us. And this Napoli game could be huge because it could put it to bed. Like if we were to beat Napoli, there's surely no way they'd finish above us then.
We've overturned all of our dropped points so far from the first half of the season, right? I mean, obviously, like we dropped extra points, but
yeah.
I actually had a look at next weekend's round of Serie A fixtures, and there's some tough games for the teams around us. Juve have got Cagliari away. Cagliari, obviously, they've sat Di Francesco. They're playing quite well. So that'll be a tough game for him. Roma have got Parma. Parma are fighting for relegation. Parma are playing quite well. They've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah, Roma.
Inter have got Torino, again, fighting for relegation. So that's
the easiest game this season.
Yeah, they'll win.
They're going to crush Torino.
Sure. And then Atalanta have got Spezia, which is, again, a tough game, I think.
So everyone around us is going to win next week then. I'm glad we've clarified that. No, I hope you're right, though. I see what you mean. There's a lot of top V bottom end clashes there, which can work well. I mean, we've seen Sampdoria beat Inter a few weeks ago, and that was a massive result for us. But it's like a sign that, you know, these teams that are fighting for their lives will scrap like hell. You know, like we might have tried to break down Inter, and we might have tried to pass through them and blah blah blah. These teams that are more pragmatic and just say, we're going to stop you playing, they might actually have a better shot at getting a result than what we did. I mean, there were Inter fans who were half joking, saying that Parma gave them a better game than what we did. And I think they did. You know, and that was because they just intended to make it very, very difficult from the first whistle. Inter went 2-0 up, and somehow when that meant that they'd won against us, against Parma, that seemed to light a rocket up them, and they were unlucky not to get a draw. So it can work in funny ways, and I hope you're right, and some of the teams around us do drop points in them games. Questions. Lorenzo Raffini asks, now this actually came in before the result today, so bear that in mind, because this is a bit of a controversial one. Got a question I want to pose for your next podcast. It may be a tad negative, but if we don't manage top 4, which is a possibility now, can we say that all the good football and all the good things that Ibra and Pioli have done genuinely mean nothing, and that choosing Pioli and Ibra over Rangnick could be regarded as the wrong choice?
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000%.
This was the one that I was holding as a first question, because I thought that it might be quite a lengthy talking point.
Because if we don't get Champions League, then nothing we did this season matters.
That's true. There's no step forward being taken.
Yeah, like Donnarumma leaves, and we are legit gonna fire Pioli and start from square one again. So, would it be better to have started from square one this season or next season? This season. But I think we're going to get top 4.
I disagree. I don't think that. I think that we're going to get top 4 anyway, but even if by some miracle that we didn't,
that'd be a miracle.
I don't think this. Well, you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I know.
We drop off. I don't think the work we've done this season is for nothing. It's rejuvenated Calabria. We've bought Tonali, integrated him into the team. Kessie looks fantastic. Like, there's so many positives that you could take out from this season and build on. Yet, Pioli probably would get fired. And it might seem that we're starting again from scratch, but I think another manager could come in and carry on the work. I wouldn't say that this season would be for nothing. I really wouldn't. Especially, like, since the start of 2020, that thing came out, we've had 100 plus points. I just think it goes to show how much better the whole team is, and it's a group of youngsters that have taken that step forward with experience. They're only going to get better. So I wouldn't say it'd be for nothing. It'd be for nothing if we brought in like Inter have done, brought in a load of big players and not achieved anything on high contracts that we can't afford. Whereas basically it's a young project that another manager could take over and still do well from.
Yeah, I think that it's a two-part question. The Rangnick being the better option part, we'll never know. So, drop it. Like there's no need to even think about Rangnick at this point. We won't know if he's a better option unless he ever comes back.
Do you know what he is? He's unemployed.
Yeah, he is. He's unemployed.
Speaks volumes.
Maybe. But it's interesting that he's unemployed.
He's had offers. Well, has he? I don't know. He's had interest, but nothing concrete. Well, but regardless, he doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. What matters is the Pioli part. And if we don't get Champions League and Zlatan retires, then this season was kind of for nothing. But there's a lot of growth to be looked at, a lot of positives to take from it that moving forward will mean something. But I do think that if he gets sacked, if we don't get Champions League, if Zlatan leaves, there's essentially another rebuild, like Maddie said. Whoever comes in next is going to have their own ideas. It's just, are they going to completely rewrite stuff like when Gianpaolo came in and then he gets sacked 7 games later and we rebuild again? Or is he going to just build off what we have? So it depends on the direction we take. I guess to say it's pointless, we would need to see what comes next before I could.
Subjective as well, isn't it? Pointless.
Yeah.
I think, it is definitely two-part. One thing I will say is that some people seem to think, and this isn't an accusation of the guy who asked the question, but there are some people who seem to think that because we didn't choose to go with Rangnick, we don't have a long-term vision. I'd say it's actually the opposite. And the choice to stick with Pioli and to keep Ibra around was actually something to protect the long-term vision that we have, knowing that we can take our project to the next level by getting into Champions League. And we thought that the best way to increase our chances of getting into the Champions League was to go for continuity. So I think that there was definitely method behind that decision. And also, I don't think that Rangnick would have necessarily been compatible with us as a club, especially given the economic time that football's going through. Because in order to bring in a guy like that, and this isn't just another head coach, this is a guy who wants to control everything from the bottom upwards. He wants his youth teams playing the same way as him. He wants to bring 10 plus staff members. He wants to buy all the latest equipment. And then also he wants to completely revamp the playing squad. You can't really do that during a global pandemic and the economic crisis that has come with it and stuff like that. So for that reason, it would have been
nice to get new equipment in the fitness center, though. Maybe stop these injuries.
Yeah, you could say that. I don't know how teams like Leipzig manage to do it, when they play such an intense style and stuff, and yet they still seem to. But they've got a squad of 30. They're all French defenders. Like it's bizarre. Their squad is just full of like Football Manager regens. But yeah, I don't think it was compatible for that reason. I don't think it will therefore be pointless that we chose to continue with Pioli and with this, because it's about what happens next. And I know football is all about hindsight, but let's say we get into the top 4 this season, which we're on course to do, and touch wood, it'll happen. It'll be about what happens in the summer. That will be a big sign of what our actual ambitions are. And then, let's say that we keep our top 4 spot, and then by summer 2022, hopefully finances in football have recovered. We're getting money, match day revenue through the gate and stuff again. Summer 2022, we might push the boat out that bit more. We keep being told that we're following the Liverpool model, and Liverpool had years of obscurity where they didn't win the league. They didn't even come close to challenging. They had to sell their best players along, like Torres, like Coutinho and Suarez, because they weren't winning things. It's more about, I guess, what happens in the next 2 years. But to criticise a choice that has catapulted us from fighting for the top half a year ago to fighting for top spot now, I think is pretty bold.
Yeah, I think what is important to think about as well, though, is we get top 4 this season. That's great. that doesn't mean that we're a top 4 team because we have to do it every season. You know, it's not just like, okay, we got Champions League, we're back. No, next season starts all over again.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's almost like
Roma-
everyone's viewing this season as if it's the final season. You know, like
Right.
there's just nothing after this. It's weird.
Yeah, Napoli and Roma are a perfect example of that. You know, Roma made it to the Champions League semi-finals.
Yeah,
didn't they? And Napoli caused some upsets along the way when they were a consistent top 4 side, and they've both shown, you know, they were both Europa League sides this season. They've shown that once you're in, you're not in for good. We're going to have to fight like hell to keep our spot next season. But the hope is that us getting back into the Champions League kind of unlocks the potential that we have as a club that's been hidden away for a long time. Because
I was just about to say that. I think if we get top 4, players will want to join Milan. It's not like Napoli and Roma. They are, look, they're good clubs, but they're not Milan at the end of the day. Like, if you're a player, you want to play for the top clubs, and growing up, any player growing up now will have seen Milan in the noughties that won the Champions League twice and stuff like that.
But we're not that team anymore either.
No, but with the
we
club.
get back to Champions League, and they're like,
Yeah, with the
okay,
club.
this is a club with some
Yeah, but
history.
that's like
like-
saying if Nottingham Forest makes it back into Champions League because they won it 60 years ago, like 3 times.
I can actually see Nottingham Forest ground roughly from where I am. So.
Pretty cool.
I think Milan are a bit of a bigger club than Nottingham Forest, personally. But
Yeah, I'm not saying that we're that, you know, but I'm just saying just because we make Champions League doesn't mean anything.
It does
you
make
know?
it more enticing, though. I mean, because they look at it, they just see 7 Champions League titles, you know, 15 Ballon d'Or winners at the club, like ridiculous historical implications at Milan. And to continue that tradition, they're back at a level where they're in Champions League. Maybe not competing for it, maybe not consistently staying there, but they're back in it. And that alone is going to unlock the door for some of those players that are upper echelon, but not quite breaking through to where only Madrid can afford them. But those other players, that they might still be like, yo, that's a good move. Let's do this.
I really don't. I don't think a Dortmund model's too bad, you know, like they've got history, they've won trophies and stuff. They have an incredible knack for scouting and developing young players, and then they sell them on for such huge sums of money. It's kind of same with Leipzig, obviously we've seen with Werner and now with Upamecano, that like it allows them to fund the next batch of signings. And if we're not going to be an elite club again anytime soon, like a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, the team that are paying out hundreds of millions, then it would be nice to be a club that's pretty effective at scouting and developing players.
I think we're a bit off being an elite club, don't get me wrong, but the name's still there, and that's what I meant in terms of, like, if you're a footballer, would you rather play for Napoli or Roma, or would you rather play for AC Milan back in the Champions League? That's what I was getting at. Like, it does unlock so many more doors, and that's what would help us continue being consistent and fighting for titles. The name alone, you want to say that you played for AC Milan in your career. You want to say you played for the second most title Champions League club. That it's just something that you'd want as a player, and to be part of the regrowth.
I want to think that, but I don't know if our name still carries as much as it used to.
Not without Champions League, it doesn't. But with Champions League, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean, where we need to wait and see what it brings when we're back in the Champions League. The hope is that it'll bring in a lot more money and the prestige will be back. And we've kind of seen what it's done. I don't think we'll go about it the same way as Inter have, but we've kind of seen what it's done for Inter, where they were able to go out and reinforce their squad with signings like Lukaku, Hakimi. But, you know, we'll have to see. That's the beauty of football. You never know what's around the corner, I guess, especially if we get sold to World Lab Technologies.
Shut up.
Great stuff.
All right, Jimmy Carr.
Yeah, good. Nate says, to strengthen for next season, which players do you think need to be sold/signed? We'll make this quick fire, so I'll name 3 players to sell and 3 players to sign. I would sell, I don't know if we're counting returning loanees, but obviously you sell players like Laxalt. I'd still sell Krunic. I know that sounds harsh, but we might actually be able to get some value, and I still don't think he really fits into any position in this team. And dare I say I'd sell Romagnoli because I don't think we're going to be able to renew him. And I think that we might be able to get some good value for him to reinvest into a better centre-back. Yeah.
Can you sell Romagnoli for Tomori, or is that like a...
Yeah, well, I'd say...
Does not count for this question.
Yeah, no, it can count. I'd say sign Tomori, absolutely. He's one of the signings. I would sign a new defensive midfielder, Boubacar Samari, maybe. But if Mete picks up, then he could be signed definitely. And I would also sign a striker in the summer. I would find a way to not renew Mandzukic. And I would sign a player like Daniel Marlin, a young striker who can learn next to Ibra. If Ibra doesn't renew, then we've got to go all out for new number 9.
We shouldn't renew Ibra.
Should or shouldn't?
Should not. We're just digging ourselves in the hole. Then my preview for this season will carry over to next season.
I'd say I'd sell Romagnoli by Tomori. I'd probably sell Castillejo and I'd probably be inclined to say I'd sell Krunic, bring in either Belotti or Eduard from Celtic.
Like him.
And I'd be tempted to say have a strong punt at Depay.
I think Depay is a very doable one, especially if we get Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather invest money in Depay than what we would in Çalhanoğlu, in my
free
opinion.
transfer.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'd rather give the wages there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo everything John said. We have less than
That's
a
going
minute.
to hurt your
Conscious
ratings,
of
by
time.
the way.
Don't care. Conscious of time, so.
Sell Romagnoli, sell Castillejo, and sell Krunic. Sign Tomori. Is Tonali, or is that like pretty much given that we're going to sign him? And then maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton. I think he'd be a pretty solid number 9 for us.
I think he would do a bit for us, actually. Yeah, I think that'd be a good shout.
Yeah.
I'd be tempted for Bakayoko. Just saying.
Oh, possibly, yeah, if he doesn't go there. Be a good 4th choice. It's just whether he'd do that. I just want to end this as the things we got it. YM Guna says, who should we want to win out of Inter Atalanta? Depends what you want, but I'm arguing here as a final point. There's no bad result in that. Because if Inter win, better for our top 4 hopes. Atalanta win, better for our Scudetto hopes. A draw, they both drop points. So fingers crossed for a draw, maybe, let's say.
Yeah, draw's best result.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody. If you've made it this far, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle for some more explicit Milan-based rants. I'm joined by Anthony Tolgrud.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time to go through it all, so everyone else's ads are in the description below. Sorry, guys.
And thanks for watching, everyone, and we will catch you in a week's time.
Andrea Conti, bella palla per Rebic, Ibra, Rebic, il tiro, gol!